Hey guys, so I'm going to go ahead and do a quick overview about the 3D printed gun known as the Liberator. I'll do a breakdown on it as well. If you're unaware, this was a big media craze for a while when people found out that you could 3D print guns. This is not something that's new at all. It's worth noting. It's just the media. I'm going to label it as that because there's so many media outlets. Media found out about it and it turned into a big thing. There are a lot positive, a lot has been negative, and there's been some in between. I kind of fall in the in between, and I'll cover that in a minute. But nonetheless, when I was printing this thing, there was no instructions included. I just got some files off of some forums I'm on, and there were no instructions. And when I was assembling it, it was kind of, there's a few questions I had and how it functioned and whatnot. And I could find some slideshow videos, and I could find some videos of people shooting them. I could not really find a lot of videos of actually hands-on breakdown of what is in this thing and how it goes together and whatnot. So I thought, why not make one myself? And so here we are. This is completely made out of ABS plastic. It probably weighs 1 to 2 pounds tops. This thing is incredibly light. The only things that are missing is a firing pin and a chunk of metal block to make this legal. Worth noting that the firing pin is not 3D printable. It actually requires a metal nail. I do not have that in here. I do not really plan on shooting it myself. I just have this more as a novelty and why not item because I can, more or less. And so for me, it's just something that's going to sit on my shelf. As far as a breakdown goes, though, I'll go ahead and start that out with, I feel like, the most important piece. As many people know, this is designed to be a one-shot pistol. Now, the part that is one-shot, though, is not any of this. It is just the barrel. This is designed to hold a 380 round. As you can see right on through there. That is the barrel. And there's a little notch right here. And one right there, and this will lock in there, twist into place. Bam, there's your barrel, pops off. So in theory, you should be able to 3D print numerous barrels, have a 380 round loaded into all of them, shoot one, pull the hammer back, shoot another, keep going. You'll have to just swap out the barrels every time, which would obviously be awful, but again, I'll cover that in a little bit. You can pull the hammer back, and once you lock it into place, ideally the spring, once you release the trigger, the spring should pull the hammer forward and hit the firing pin, hit the bullet, and send out the projectile. So from there, barrel pops right off. Set that over here. Now there are 3 pins in the receiver that hold pretty well most of these internals in. I will go ahead and just grab a Phillips screwdriver and pop all of these pins out. Voila. Now with those 3 pins popped out, this comes out as well. Now, you can kind of see a little better now. This is the hammer. It comes, you have to 3D print 2 spiral springs, a little bar, and then a rod to hold all that together. And so ideally when you lock this hammer back and you pull the trigger, these springs should strike your hammer forward. Now my springs, I don't have everything sanded down fully, so that nothing really functions 100% how it should. And this, as it sits, mine would not fire. I don't really plan on finishing it either, again, because I don't plan on shooting it. But there is how it works. Just to answer that question, that's how the hammer goes. So, just a better look, there are your hammer springs. Set those over here. That is 4 pieces total to make up that. Now you have a tiny little pin. Can't really see too well, but there's a tiny little pin right there. that I can go ahead and pop out. And there is your hammer. And the housing, which the firing pin would go right there in that hole, and it would strike on this end. From there, I'll pull this out, there we go. This is another 3D printed spring. I didn't really take time on this, so it's not finished at all, of course, but ideally, when you pull the trigger back, it compresses this spring. When you let the trigger go, it snaps forward, and when the spring is compressed, it releases the hammer, and once the hammer is released, blah blah blah. So there's the trigger spring. Now the trigger is the trickiest part to get out of here, but can be good now. It's a pretty heavy trigger pull in all honesty. Much heavier than most standard firearms that I've dealt with. Let's see. There we go. There's your trigger. It is incredibly small, but it works. It functions. I mean, I'll give it that. It does what it's supposed to do. Now what's left is an empty receiver, and there's another pin holding on the grip. There we go. There's your grip. It's hollow. Again, all ABS plastic, all 3D printed. And the pin for that. And now, here is your receiver. Not a lot to it. There is this little box here. You can kind of see a lid that's I've got stuck in there. That is meant to cover a metal block to go in there for legality reasons. I'll cover it here in a second. But this is all of your internals. Receiver, barrel, there's your firing pin housing, your grip, springs for the hammer, the actual hammer itself, trigger spring, and all of your pins. There's a total of 17 pieces to this whole thing, including the little cover that goes into here. Not a lot to it. It's very simple. As far as some questions I commonly get go, number one question would be, does it work? Again, I've never fired mine, but to answer that simply, just looking at this, I can go ahead and tell you that yeah, it absolutely would work, and there's plenty of videos showing it works. Yeah, it absolutely would work. That's the main question I would say I get. The second question I get a lot is it legal? And yes, as long as you can legally own a firearm, then yes, you can legally own the Liberator. That being said, you are supposed to have some metal so it can be detectable by a metal detector from everything I understand. I'm not a lawyer. I am not a legal expert. Do not take full legal advice from me. But from everything I've seen and understand, you are supposed to have enough metal to be detectable by a metal detector, which is why this hole actually is here in place. So you can put a chunk of metal there just so it can be detectable. And so you can have a metal firing pin in there as well, which I'm pretty sure the metal firing pin is just because a plastic firing pin would not be practical at all. Another big thing I see talked about and thrown around a lot is it the First Amendment or the Second Amendment that this is covered by? And really, it's the first. People keep throwing around the Second Amendment and say, oh, well, the Second Amendment covers firearms. That is true. But this isn't about firearms. And the original creator, that's been a big argument point for him, is that this is not covered by Second Amendment law. This is covered by First Amendment freedom of speech, which is because this is information. This is what he is giving the people, is information on how to make this. He's not selling a firearm, he's selling information, which he's not even selling anymore, it's free now. But, so he's giving information. And to get rid of that would be generally the same as a book burning, because you can get information on how to make bombs and everything else. I mean, that's just how it is. It's not the Second Amendment. We can argue it all day, but it's fact. The next big thing is it practical? No, not even in the slightest. The fact that you have to do all this work to fire one bullet, and then even more work to reload and fire another bullet, just hoping that it works every time. It's insanely impractical. I would jump on just about any budget firearm I could before relying on this. So no, it's not at all practical, not even the slightest. I mean, and it's gigantic, it's bulky, it looks like something that's going to be in the Space Force. So no, the answer to that question. Cost. I see a lot of people that are not really doing research on this, throwing numbers around like crazy. I've seen people say that it would cost $3,000 to get the equipment to make one of these, and I've seen people claim up to $30,000 to make one of these. I made this about $250 worth of equipment, counting my printer. Granted, I bought my 3D printer secondhand from a good friend of mine for $200 with a bunch of filament. But let's go more realistic and say you're buying a new one. You can buy a new 3D printer for about $300, and you can buy filament for anywhere from $20 to $50 for a roll. So I mean, with that being said, you could make one of these for about, it's like $350. You could be making some of these, and then from there you're making more and more for about $40 a piece or so, give or take. So really, it does not cost a lot. That being said, you could buy a really reliable handgun for the cost of buying a printer and all the filament. You could buy a couple of high points. You could buy a lot of things for what it takes to just get to build your first 3D printed gun. Now that being said, that's not why it's cool though. It's cool because you're 3D printing your own gun. And again, that kind of goes into why I made it, because I could. Just point blank, because I can. Will I ever use it? No. Again, no. For home defense, I would probably rather use my bare hands and hope I could beat somebody down before I would reach for this thing. Not even counting the other firearms I own, I would use my bare hands first. But that being said, that is the Liberator. That is the 3D printed gun that a lot of people have been interested in. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to try to do more videos like this. I want to do reviews, breakdowns of other guns I've got, other 3D printed things as well. Probably not any other 3D printed guns, but 3D printed things nonetheless. So if you've got anything you'd be interested in, let me know, comment below. If you're interested in just following more of my videos, definitely subscribe. I'm going to do my best to try to be more consistent on videos of here. But yeah, if you've got any more questions about the Liberator, definitely comment. I will answer everything I can. So with that being said, thanks for watching.